Sounds of Stadia Podcast, episode number 75, your weekly gaming and Stadia podcast, rounded up, the longest running Stadia podcast this side of Google Maps. We've got a great show for you all this week. We're going to be talking about all of your Stadia March programs, Terraria making a turnaround on the platform, and happy days, the guy can watch Lord of the Rings in 4K, so all is right with the world once more. We're also going to be covering games that could have potentially been in existence, like Journey to the Savage Planet 2, a action multiplayer coming to Stadia, and one horror episodic game from the only Hideo Kojima is no more. But we'll be talking about that and much more on the Sounds of Stadia podcast, episode number 75. If you are new to the show and the channel, do give us a like and a subscribe down below. It really does help us out. Explore that googly algorithm that's out there and grow our channel to all the people who enjoy Stadia out there. Gets them in touch with us and they see our content. My name's Chris, I'm your host for the day, joined by my two lovely co-hosts, the return of the MacBook himself, the techie teacher, Mr. Tom. Welcome home, sir.
The MacBook?
Yeah, because I was going with Return of the Mac, but then I thought I need to make it techie. So it's the Return of the MacBook.
Now. The reference makes sense. I like it, actually. I like that.
I don't know where that came from, by the way. It wasn't planned. It was just as soon as I started talking. How are you?
No,
how
it's
are you
good to
doing,
be back.
Tom? You're rocking a new comfy seat?
I am, yeah. I got my chair finally, so it's pretty comfy. I'm just gonna sit here and chill and hopefully not nod off halfway through the podcast. To be fair, we've got plenty of news to talk about, so I'm pretty sure I'll stay awake.
We do indeed. And of course, below Tom, we have the man of many pixels rocking some fancy stadium. Talk about in just a second. Mr. Ritchie, how are you this weekend? A little bit rough?
Yeah, I had a few too many drinks and didn't sleep well last night. And I just realised when I was showing off the mat, I literally was just pointing at my nipples. So there's that.
Well, I'm sure some of our listeners and viewers out there will not mind that at all. But, thank you. The trio has returned. We're back to bring you all of your Stadia news. And of course, it's been a very busy week. If you check out the news websites out there, the fire is burning on the Stadia kiln of the world out there. But we've got some great news stories and discussion to bring you this week. However, there are a couple of things that we want to address before we get into the show. Nothing bad, don't you worry. Our Stadia live stream that happens every week happened this past Thursday, where myself and Richie jumped in and played some Outcasters with the community. We curved those shots. We had, of course, Grace from the community team in the chat as well. And we were joined by all of you lovely people out there as we basically messed around, collected some coins, and wore ice cream cones as hats. As you do. It was nice getting back in. That's been a while.
Yeah, standard Thursday evening that way you wear the ice cream cone as a hat.
Was. While we've got you here, Tom, can you remember those ice cream cones that weren't real ice creams? They were made of marshmallow that you used to get as a child.
Oh yeah. You get them from them. You get them usually from like the sweet section of the shop, wouldn't you, or something?
They're like tiny little ice creams, but they look like ice creams. But ladies and gentlemen, they're not ice cream. Don't melt, which is perfect for children because we've all been there where the ice cream just ends all down your face, or on the floor for the most. Shocking stuff. So that was great fun. And don't forget, you can check out our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Sounds of Stadia, where every week we play live stream games with different members of the community and different games pretty much week on week. And we'll have some exciting new games to possibly try out as your March Pro games are available. So tuned to talk about all of those things. We should probably mention as well, gentlemen, as with much of the Stadia community, the postman was very, very busy this past weekend. Wait a minute, Mr. Postman, as he dropped off. It looks like he got permission to enter the UK and deliver some care packages to all of the wonderful Stadia content creators this side of the pond. It took a while. I think all of our packages came from Salt Lake City, Utah. So it's been a bit of a journey they've all came on, but we just want to send our absolute gratitude and thanks to Grace, Chris, and the Stadia team for acknowledging all the hard work that everyone, not only us, but everyone in the Stadia community who's really put in some effort to really raise this platform and acknowledge this platform as an amazing place to be and an amazing place to play games. And we got some sweet swag, gents. We won't be coy about it. I was pretty chuffed when I got a box to say, like, we didn't ask for this, of course.
The box was huge as well.
Unnecessarily huge. I just want to say, packaging. Come on, you can get that packaging. Save the planet, ladies and gentlemen. But yes, I mean, Richie, you're rocking the T-shirt that you've no doubt all seen on Twitter. Oh, he's going to give us a twirl. Don't give us a twirl. You'll wrap your microphone around yourself and choke yourself out. Tom, Very convenient, subtle sip there.
Yeah, just taking a quick drink from my Stadia branded water bottle.
Which is incredible, by the way.
It's a really good quality bottle. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
I actually thought
Really
at
good
first
quality.
it was an oxygen tank because the thing bloody huge.
Yeah.
I'm going to go swimming deep underwater sea diving with that thing for a moment.
It's like one of those sonic air bubbles.
Oh yeah, that give me panic attacks. Those sonic air bubbles. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, don't want that happening at all. We also got some like pin badges, stickers, and a backpack. Cool.
You did.
Are you a 2-strapper or a 1-strapper, Tom? When it
Oh, I mean, it was always a little bit. You had to have a 1-strap at school, didn't you? Really, just wear it at the angle like a. Did you ever have that at school? Even though you had a 2-strap backpack, you had to wear it over an angle, otherwise you were the target.
Cool if you had 2 straps, which is so weird, and it's such a teenage thing to do, isn't it?
Even now, if I'm wearing a backpack, I'm usually a 1-strapper unless it's like quite full, and then I just want to split the waist. But you just feel wrong with 2 straps on in an empty backpack, especially if you've got like pulled all the way up, so it's like sitting like really high.
It's really high on the.
It's got to be down at your ass.
It's such a millennial school problem that is as well.
Riding up on them nips, Richie.
Yeah.
And so massive thank you to obviously the appreciation you've shown us. We didn't ask for it, we didn't expect it, so we are absolutely like wholeheartedly thankful. That's huge, and it goes to show we're doing the right thing, gentlemen. Doing the right thing. We're making some people proud up there. And that's kind of it for housekeeping. What I would like to get into was with us having you back this week once again, Tom. Before we get into the deep stories of the week, I'd like to know what you've been playing.
I picked up a little game that came out last week called Shantae Half Genie Hero.
I had a feeling you would.
Yes. Yeah, Ultimate
Edition. So it's going
Edition.
to be on Pro next week.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd expect it to be on Pro. No, I also picked up Hellpoint as well, so I haven't had a chance to really get too much into that. But I've got some thoughts on that game that I can certainly share in a while. But Shantae, that is a good game. That is a game I've genuinely slept on. I mean, the original came out in 2000 and I want to say 2010. It may even have been before that. It could have been quite a bit before that, to be honest with you. But I believe it actually won IGN's Game of the Year for its category at one point way back.
What category was that?
Yeah.
Dancing Genie 2D platform game.
But seriously, it is a really good game. It definitely, Chris, you'll enjoy it. Gives you Monster Boy vibes.
Yeah, you say enjoy it.
It's not as difficult in that extent. It's more akin in terms of gameplay style. I want to say sort of along the lines of like your Super Mario or Sonic the Hedgehog sort of 2D platform-esque.
More start to finish than...
Yeah, but it's got a lot of like back and forth to different areas, akin to Monster Boy in terms of, you've got towns and certain locations too. Think of it like, Richie, for you, I'd probably say it's sort of like a 2D side-scrolling Legend of Zelda-esque game. It's a bit Metroidvania to an extent. But it's definitely the closest thing I would say. It's like Monster Boy, but without that level of difficulty. There's a lot more guidance with where you need to go. Yeah, there's a lot of like you need to go here.
Without frustrating stuff, and it's just fun.
Yeah, and with the Ultimate Edition, you actually pick up a ton of different sort of like stories with it as well. So there's the original main story you get, but then there's all of the additional side characters who are part of the main story. They all have their own unique chapters and things that you can actually play standalone. There's also there's hardcore modes, which is more like your classic arcade or console experience where you have a certain amount of lives, and as soon as you lose those lives, that's it, game over. You've got to go back to the very beginning as well. So it's very well thought out, and I'm certainly enjoying it. I'm going to keep playing it.
That's the Ultimate Collection one? It's not the...
Yes. It's not the pixel art one, which was like...
kind of one.
Yeah, I think Risky's Revenge is like a direct port of I think Game Boy Advance game or something like that. But so there must be some sort of emulation on the Stadia side of things, really, because it definitely looks like that. But no, this one's a full remake, remaster, improved graphics, and everything's all crammed in one place. So it's a good experience, I think, for 30 quid. Good experience.
And how about yourself? What have you?
Well, I actually need to apologise to the community because I ran a poll for our community tab saying what should I play, and Outriders won comfortably, and then I didn't play it. In my defense, I got drunk with a few friends and stuff.
Right. It's time to put out a
So
new
I'm now
poll.
suffering for my negligence.
You will pay and suffer
Yeah.
for that.
I will play it probably tomorrow, but I've been playing Bravely Default, and I'm a bit addicted to that game because it's awesome.
Not the second one.
No, it's Bravely Default 2.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've gone back to the OG one.
No.
Wonderful. Well, seeing as though Richie wasn't around, I did jump into the Outriders demo. That was my game, because I promised our audience last week, Richie, that I would jump in and play the game. And after being slightly confused with the marketing around the game, I think in previous podcast episodes, and a few people in the comments section said we kind of got the wrong end of the stick with what the game was, and I think we'd all kind of came to the understanding that it was just an online multiplayer game, but actually there's a lot more to it. So I've done some research, and Outriders, I just want to set the scene for you gentlemen. So the game starts with Earth was dead, we had destroyed it. 2 colony ships were built to carry us across the stars, but only one ship made it. We're all that's left. After an 83-year journey, we orbit our new home, the planet Enoch, humanity's last damn chance. And that's how the game opens up, gentlemen. And the demo, it's an unlimited demo, there's no kind of time frame on it, but yeah, I jumped in with some friends, obviously on PlayStation 5, because there's a whole rigmarole around Stadia not getting the demo, and the team said they weren't bringing it at this moment in time. I don't think it's probably coming at this point, but clearly Stadia, with it not being a priority, I don't blame Square Enix for prioritising getting the game ready for launch as opposed to doing a demo for yet another platform. We've mentioned with Cyberpunk and trying to set the game up for like 9 platforms. It's enough work within COVID times in its own right, so yeah, I don't mind that. But yeah, played it on PlayStation 5, ran incredibly well, so much so I couldn't even read the hints and tips on the loading screens, because by the time I get through the first sentence, the game was in there. But a couple of points I made in terms of the gameplay. I would best describe it as Gears of War meets Division. It's got cover mechanics. Tom, actually, you played it as well a little bit, so by all means, chime in with the bits that you enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it sets it up. You land on the planet. You're essentially the colonizing team. So everyone's in cryo sleep who fled Earth. There's about 1 million people up in the ships and the stars. And you come out as kind of the first batch of cryostasis. And your job is to colonize the planet, set up Wi-Fi and internet, is funny enough one of the jokes they make about it. And basically start to like kind of not terraform the planet, but set it up for food and agriculture and society. So we can then move in. And you land, and all of the beacons that your team have sent out to kind of test and feedback some statistics, they've all gone array, Richie. They've all gone amiss. You need to track them down, locate them. And then basically you see some of the local wildlife, you see some of the local creatures. They very much look like the demon dogs from Ghostbusters, I found, Tom. Very scary, but they're all herbivores, apparently. And then you get kind of caught up in this...
How do you know
spoilers,
herbivores?
I guess.
If
They say in the game, the guy in your headphones says there's some kind of like
Yeah.
giant vegetarians, and the tech woman says we call them herbivores. And you meet a few interesting characters. There's a guy who looks like Cad Bane from Star Wars Clone Wars with his cowboy hat called Tanner.
Yeah.
He was quite a cool dude. And yeah, you kind of like you get to grips with the shooting range stuff, the sprint, read dialogue choices. It's very much similar to Mass Effect and like you get with modern RPGs where you've got multiple options to chat to people with. And essentially, again, not really spoilers because it's all showcased in the trailers and that, but you get caught in an electrical storm. That does something with your DNA, and then boom, you end up back in cryo sleep for whatever reason. Basically, when you wake up, the new planet you're trying to colonize has gone to shit. And all the people who were frozen in cryostasis came out of cryostasis far too early, and there is no food, everyone's fighting for scraps, and basically the whole shitty reason you left original Earth is happening on this new planet. And there's all factions and war going on. And yeah, but because of the electrical storm you were part of, you've got some kind of unique Destiny-esque powers. And yeah, jumped in with some friends, and I had a great time with it. The premise of the game really, really hooked me. It gave me kind of Terminator vibes with like a post-apocalyptic future. It reminded me very much of Starship Troopers in the way the dropships are coming in. You're trying to colonize a planet that's full of bugs and creatures. And like I said, the gameplay, Gears of War meets Division 2. Loads of fun, very very frenetic. I just had a great time. If you want to add anything to that, Tom?
I've got a question for you, actually. So we've discussed this pre-podcast, but I think it would be good to relay this to the audience as well. But what class did you opt for when you had the choice of picking?
So I wrote them all down to give people context. There is a Techromancer. So this is after you come out of the electrical storm, you kind of pick which class you want to funnel all your skill points into. He is a long range with support gadgets. There is a Pyromancer, which is medium range but can conjure fire. There is a Trickster, which is close range, and he's like a kind of a hit and run specialist. And I think he travels through space time, so he does kind of like warp in, warp out, teleport, like a bit like Nightcrawler.
I was going to say Nightcrawler.
I would describe it as Nightcrawler is that guy. The Pyromancer is very much the fireman. I think it's called Pyro next.
Pyro.
Funny enough. And the final class is the Devastator, which is your close range tank character. So that's like kind of your big bulky like smash shit up kind of guy. But no, Tom, I went with the Pyromancer because the thought of wielding fire appealed to me quite a little bit. And
coincidentally, so did I.
You press on the R1, L1, and you can kind of bring fire up from the ground. You can throw kind of fire grenades. You use a fire whip, almost like Ghost Rider, to pull the chain in to drag people towards you. And that's obviously in and amongst having assault rifles and pistols and shotguns and all the Division-esque elements too. But yeah, you end up in a hub world and you go out and do missions. But unlike, I think how it's so similar to the Division, but it didn't feel quite the same. It didn't feel as slow paced. It was very.
It's like to me, it was a science fantasy Division, which I really like because it takes it that step up from sort of like the close to realism element, but it adds those elements of fantasy like through technical support, tech support. That sounds really
calling tech support.
Yeah.
The Division, sorry, it's quite tactical by nature. So do you think it's just a bit more action orientated?
Yeah,
strategically taking down your targets.
It's not even so much that. I think it is just more. It's so action heavy. I think I was saying to you guys beforehand that the AI is very aggressive, so they very much flank you at any opportunity. They charge, they rush you, and it does make you think on your feet with how you can utilize your abilities. But I think what made it so dynamic was to get your health back. It's not a case of using medikits or just waiting it out until your health restores. As the Pyromancer, Tom, you'll know that you have to set people on fire and you get your health back from people who are burning. So if you're not aggressive yourself, you won't get your health back. So it almost pushes you towards attacking. You're not just hiding behind a wall and popping up, shoot, duck, shoot. It actually forces you into thinking about your attack.
It sounds like it's took a few leaves out Doom's book, where instead of like having people constantly hide, they really force you to keep moving.
Yeah,
It's the kind of game that we could sit here and you could keep speculating over, like, oh, it's a mix of this, it's got elements of that and so on. But it does feel quite, to an extent, quite original. I'd be interested to see what happens with the story, because my only criticism of it is I felt that the writing was lacking a little bit. Like it felt very much kind of like Gears 1, in the sense that Gears 1 was a good game, but the sort of dialogue, it was very much kind of like meathead smash, like destroy things. Like it was quite basic.
What you've described the story seems a bit cookie cutter, like dystopian sci-fi. Like, well, the world's gone to shit. We'll move to another one, and then that world's also went to shit.
It's very Battlestar Galactica.
Can we redeem ourselves as a species?
Yeah, with like an X-Men element in there for good measure. But there was some funny moments within the story that they did make me chuckle, because the main character is very much. He doesn't give a shit about the NPCs around him. So the festive gear vendor you get to is like a Mr. Miyagi type bloke from Karate Kid almost. And he's got the shop. And as soon as you get to the shop, some little scruff runs in and just shoots him. And you turn around and go like, what the hell? And he goes, oh, I didn't realize you were like an enhanced like mutant kind of guy. He's like, don't like, and you take the gun off him and put it to his head. And he's like, he was just about to show me the good stuff. So he's not even like bothered that you shot the man innocently. He's more worried that he was just about to see the good loot in the shop. And there's another bit in the side mission later on which made me chuckle, where you kind of break into the end point of one of the side missions, and the guy holds a girl hostage, and he goes, "Don't move her, I'll kill her." And he goes, "I'm not here for the girl." And the guy's like, "Oh, what?" And it just breaks the normal. And he's there to kind of to revenge on Mr. Miyagi, essentially. And he goes, Mr. Miyagi, he doesn't say Mr. Miyagi, he says whatever the guy's called, but he goes, sends his regards, and then goes to try and shoot him, and he already gets killed. He's like, I was just in the middle of my line there. So It has like a little bit of like a Duke Nukem, Serious Sam fun vibe.
It's got a bit of fourth wall breakiness.
Yeah, a little bit, and I enjoyed that. I just felt honestly playing it felt quite refreshing for me. I honestly enjoyed
kind of because my biggest thing about the game is everything I've seen of it just seemed quite very generic.
Mm-hmm.
But now you've just been explaining like the interesting quirks of it, so it's probably a good job they have brought out a demo.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought twice about it, and I would probably confidently say I'll jump back into the demo this week with you at some point, Richie. Tom, by all means, if you're down for it. And I think I'm sold. Honestly, I think I'm sold on it. I've got that itch. I've just finished Immortals Phoenix Rising, pretty much all done. That was a great game as well. If you've not played that, and I've just got this little bit of a void now. Funny enough, void out space and time. But so Outriders, ladies and gentlemen, if you have a chance to check out the demo, obviously it's available on other platforms, and it is coming to Stadia day and day with cross-play. So we should point out that if you want to play it with your friends on other platforms, all you have to do is generate an invite code, let them know what that code is, and you drop in, drop out Lego style, which is great for if you've got friends across multiple players. This is the ideal thing for Stadia, that the user base is not beholden to just the Stadia platform. So.
Absolutely.
Good stuff, exciting stuff. That's Outriders. Go check that out. But you're not here, everybody, just to talk about Outriders this week, because we've got tons of news for you. So, Tom, will you do the honours once again after Richie picked up the mantle after the last week?
Yes, certainly. I think we're going to rein it in, try and give you that oomph back once again. I'm of course talking about the super sexy special Stadia Stories segment, aka the news.
Sponsored this week by our Patreon member, Barry J. Thank you, Barry, for your continued support over on patreon.com/Sounds of Stadia, just like you all can, where you can support the channel that little bit extra by heading over there and donating as much as $1 a month. I always feel like I need to say $1. No, that one time we did that high pitch raise, $1. It's just extra support for us. If you enjoy our content, we really do appreciate that. And you do get extra perks, you get exclusive chat with us, and more importantly, you get our sideshow topical podcast a whole 5 days early until it drops on free feeds every Friday. So this week, obviously, we're going to go and talk about some detail about upcoming games and news, and you can get that 5 days early if you feel so inclined, and it does help support the channel, and it helps us invest and make things bigger and better for you as time on. So thank you for that. But gentlemen, the news this beginning of March, as our listeners enjoy this podcast, it will be the 1st of March, I believe. The shortest month of the year is out the way, and it's starting to feel a bit like spring. It's sunny outside, the ice is melted, and for most of it anyway. I can't speak for everybody, obviously, but it's I'm feeling like a new freshness. The world is returning to some sense of normality, I feel, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited.
Fantastic. It does certainly feel like that. You are right.
Yesterday, we're recording this on Sunday. Saturday was absolutely lovely.
It was, yeah. In the UK, I went outside in just a t-shirt all day. Like, obviously, I wasn't outside all day.
Just a t-shirt, Chris.
Just a t-shirt. Yeah, just a t-shirt.
Nothing in his lower half. That's how he rolls.
Yeah, that's how we live around my neck of the. But let's back to the Stadia news. That's why the camera's always top half only.
Yeah.
March Pro games. We always get excited this time of the month because we get a nice list of games that we can check out and play for free thanks to our Stadia Pro subscription. And this month was unlike no other. We got a list of games dropping in. First things first, the exclusive Stadia only game from Q Games, Pixel Junk Raiders. And it's got the press all riled up a little bit because it's coming to a platforming demise and all this crap that you've probably all seen on Twitter. We're not going to spend the podcast going into it because, quite frankly, we're bored and fed up with it. We've said before, it's basically just a vicious circle now where one news article reports on a story, the other picks up on it, then someone else comments on that article, and it ends up being Chinese whispers. And they all like to use we've said before the podcast that they use very descriptive words for neutral journalism. Demise, failure.
There's no winning at some point. It's like, oh my god, this game's coming to a dead platform. Then on the other hand, it's like, oh, Stadia's a dead platform because there's no games coming. It's like, pick one lane.
So I think the one of the three of us to take front on this is probably you, Tom, because this is as they describe it, it's a roguelike game.
Yeah, it's giving me big. It gives me big. Of course, it always comes to me, doesn't it? When we get to this term, it gives me big vibes of Risk of Rain 2, to a certain sense. But I'm very sort of intrigued by it because I'm watching the trailer back now at the moment, and it doesn't seem so straightforward in the sense that you are just going to be progressing through level after level after level. It also looks like there might be some sort of almost weird, strangely tower defense mechanic akin to Orcs Must Die, but not so much against like a horde mode type thing, but more like I said before, like a Risk of Rain, run around an arena, destroy the enemies, and it looks like the aim is to rescue the survivors, is what it says. But I don't really know much about the Pixel Junk series, but a lot of people seem to be quite excited for it. Whether that's just because it's a new game that's coming exclusively to Stadia, or whether it's just because it's a beloved franchise, I'm not entirely sure. But I do quite like the almost cel-shaded style of art that it's got going on. It seems pretty colorful. It seems pretty different to some extent to what we might be used to for some things. But if it's anything like Risk of Rain, I'll certainly give that one a shot. Seems to be the biggest game we're getting this month anyway.
Yeah, and a big part of that is obviously it being Stadia exclusive only. So, off the back of them not making any games anymore, less than a month later, he's an exclusive game that's going to draw people to the platform who are fans of the Pixel Junk series and are keen on checking this game out because it's the only place you can play it. So I suppose to give it a bit of a rundown, they said Pixel Junk Raiders, the action-adventure roguelike from Q Games, has been built with state share as well. We should point that out. There's a big article in Friday's community blog post about integrating state share into it from the ground up. And I said it's the latest creation. Planet Tantal is under attack by fiendish aliens bent on harvesting the population's life force. Shake off that hypersleep and slash, smash, raid and rescue your way through hundreds of unique missions, all while unraveling the mysteries of enigmatic keepers. It's exciting, and it's only a. But we should probably point out state share because they did have a whole article breakdown of how it's going to feature. And this is, I think, you said, Tom, about the different levels. They mentioned within state share, they've got something in the game called imprints, which is within each stage you can essentially leave turrets, gadgets, and other weaponry, which I presume if you then share your state with other people, they can essentially use your tools you've left within that world. So if I did a particular section and I wanted to share that with our audience, they could jump in and play the exact same section with the remnants of what I've left within that world. That's how I interpreted it.
That seems akin a little bit to like Death Stranding with the idea of, helping other people out in your universe, like, the ladders and the bridges and stuff like that. That'd be interesting. That'd be very interesting. But I wonder if you could get to a point where, and I really want to sort of, I don't know, to an extent want to try to abuse the state share system a little bit by sort of getting like a chain of people who go in, put their own shit down, then pass that on to another person who then puts their own shit down and accumulates it to the point that you enter the world and it's just like, well, there's nothing for me to do here.
We've talked about before what the potential of like state share for things like speedrunners. And I think with a CG-generated game, that's obviously, it's hard to get a good speedrunning community going around that. But with state share, you can create, like, literally, okay, this is the level we're all going to run. Share the state to everyone who's going to run it. So you can almost undo the procedurally generated part of the game.
Yeah, so the detail have said is by clicking the link to for your capture, they can start from the beginning of your unique stage in Pixel and use your imprints, as well as they complete the level and save the people who live on the planet. In this way, the state passes between several players will evolve slightly depending on how each person plays the game. It does sound almost like a pass the baton over of like, here's my game, this is what I've done in this procedurally generated world. Richie, you have a go. You do your thing. Tom, then you have a go. And obviously the enemies, I'd imagine, will refresh and live in that world, but you're going to find remnants almost from like a previous era. It could be really interesting how it's rolled out.
Definitely.
Quantum turrets, quantum mines, quantum minions are just a few of the things that you can do with your imprints.
Everything's quantum.
Everything's coming up quantum on this deck of cards. It looks really intriguing, and you're totally right. The color, the art style, it's got a very 70s, 80s color palette aesthetic, which I'm always a big fan of. But come probably the time of listening, you can claim it for free. go enjoy Pixel Junk Raiders and let us know what you think of it.
Absolutely, share your states as well. I want to see. I want to jump in and enjoy.
Share them states. Only on Stadia.
Oh no! Stadia.
That was what we called it, wasn't it? I think this week. I can't remember. Either way, that's a throwback. What's Stadia? That's it. Not Stadia.
Throwback to episode 1 to 10.
Maybe. Yeah. Whenever we got
that was a weird segment.
It was a weird segment. For those who tune in the podcast episode 75, we used to do a section to flesh out the show where we talked about American states and some quirky facts, because state and Stadia were closely shared words from the phonetic standpoint, and
hard times we've evolved since then.
Thankfully, we have plenty of news, so let's keep ticking over, gentlemen, rather than reminisce on the quirky weirdness that we used to do in our early podcasting years. We also got some other free pro games drop. We've got Avicii Invector dropping as well, which is kind of the music rhythm game in memory of sport. Avicii's passed away, right? I'm right in thinking that he died.
Yes.
A game that kind of reminisces about his history and his legacy that he left in a. It reminds me of Thumper. I think we mentioned it when it was first rated for Stadia months and months ago, which feels like ages ago on a tenny. But it's essentially like Thumper. You go through musical beats. It features 25 of his biggest hits, and then you just get to enjoy that in the music. As much as his music's not really up my alley, when I'm out on a night and I've had a couple of drinks and the club's bouncing, everyone recognises these songs. So go check that game out. It's free, even if you just want to kind of test your palette with something a little bit different. That is Avicii's Vector. Either of you two big Avicii fans?
No, not really.
No, not really.
Again,
but
like you, it's not my style of music. But...
No, I do quite like the rhythm games though, so I'll definitely give it a shot, and I'll feedback once we've had the release.
I do think I'm going to try and sing a song then, but I definitely know some of his songs. If you play them,
you definitely know some songs. You know some songs,
100%. And as a surprise addition as well, from down the pipeline, Waka Waka, we've got Pac-Man Mega Tunnel Battle. Is now over on Stadia as well. Of course, it was a Stadia first when the game first launched. Battle Royale Pac-Man. We had a great time testing it out during it was the Good Stuff event, right? That it was showcased initially.
It was a free demo during the Good Stuff event.
And Richie, you pointed out to me on Thursday that you've not played this with anyone because you missed out on the demo.
When during the Good Stuff event, when you did the stream, I wasn't very well, so instead of joining you on the stream after the event, I went to bed. So I have played the game, I just haven't played with views.
Right, so that sounds like potentially this Thursday, gentlemen.
Could be.
Sounds of Stadia live stream every Thursday with the community. Of course, we can have up to 64 people?
I think it is, yeah.
I always go 64, but then the second voice in my head then also says, no, you're just thinking of Nintendo where everything's 64. It's such a good number. But the demo was first out on Stadia, but now you can play the whole game for free. So claim it on Pro and go eat those cherries and chase those ghosts, because it's a great game.
I will just sidebar here and say, guys, I did buy Pac-Man Mega Tunnel Battle back in the day. So once again,
why?
Speaking of games that I've purchased, though, I'm pretty sure there's a fourth title coming.
Yeah, I was looking at this one.
There is. So another recommended title. If you didn't pick it up in that amazing sale it was in the other week, where you got a whole 10 pence off the purchase price, then fear not, ladies and gentlemen, because the game is now free on Pro. That's right, Reigns, the game. Tom, you've recommended a couple of times. Of course, you bought it as well. It's very much like, did you say Game of Thrones Tinder? Was, I think, the best?
Yeah, it's a really weird way of describing it, but that's genuinely how I would go with it. You play the role of a monarch within a kingdom, and you essentially have to make decisions when your sort of advisors come to you. So you'll have things like an executioner come to you. You'll have like your court jester, your all the different people, your financial treasurer, I suppose. And you have to make a decision, and that decision affects one of four different meters that you have to sort of manage. So you've got like the church, you've got the people, you've got the military, and you've got financial. And throughout the course of doing it, you've got to try and make sure that none of the bars end up going empty, because that results in the monarch's death. But at the same time, you also can't let one cap out, because if one of them caps out, then they gain too much power, like the church might gain too much power, and so on. But at the same time, there's loads and loads of little side missions you've got to do. So things like finding certain items or progressing down certain paths. And naturally, you are going to come to a point where a single monarch's life does just expire after a certain amount of years. So at the end of that, you move on to the next monarch, and you just progress through, centuries and centuries of kings and queens running a kingdom. And it's such a basic concept, but it works, and it's fun, and it's just a good little one that you can sit there and you can spend half an hour, 2 hours before you even realize it. It's good. It's good.
Fantastic. I'll definitely check it out with it being pro now. I didn't quite have the budget to stretch to that sale price that it was on the other. But I guess so. Out of this month's pro games, you've purchased 2 of them prior. Yes. So I guess
the 2 that could be purchased prior.
Yeah,
yes.
So, yeah, true. So yeah, I guess Shantae's thingy will be probably scheduled for May. You want to?
Yeah, I'd probably make a guess now and say May, June. You're probably expecting the Ultimate Edition of Shantae Half Genie Hero and Hellpoint.
Exactly, perfect segue, because weirdly enough, we got the Stadia blog, which was here's your Match Pro games, here's some new announcements, here's some information on Pixel Junk Raiders and such with State Share. Got everyone hyped, and then randomly the next day, I think it was even during the PlayStation conference or something like that, on the Thursday, it dropped. That Hellpoint is available now. And obviously people over on Twitter were just asking, like, why? What? It's great news, but why wasn't this in the blog? It's such a weird, omission. But either way, Hellpoint is dropping Stadia. It's available now. You can pick it up for $29.99 English pounds, or the United States equivalent, or your country's equivalent, I guess, not just the States. And Tom, I think, again, I don't mean to throwing everything over to you, but these games that have been announced are very much up your alley. Obviously, you bought Hellpoint. It was on the show last week when it was rated. Me and Richie had a discussion about it, but it very much wasn't in our Dark Souls, Sekiro wheelhouse like it is for you. So this is very much sci-fi Dark Souls is the vibe we got from it. Do you want to...
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. That's exactly how I'd describe it. It's a very dark. Again, I use the term science fantasy. It's very science fiction. And essentially, you play a 3D printed human who is sent to a derelict space station called Irid Novo. And the reason you're sent there, the space station orbits a black hole, and you're being sent there to basically try to identify what has happened to this space station. Why is it derelict? Why is there no life there now? And you're sort of faced with sort of like a hellish landscape on there, which is very sort of, I think a game I'd sort of, like the theme I'd sort of link it closest to is quite recently we talked about, or we've certainly done off air, when the Xbox trailer came out for the game called Scorn. It's very sort of like, it's quite gruesome sci-fi.
Slimy alien stuff.
Yeah.
One of my initial impressions was the game, as a pitch could be, what if Doom was a Dark Souls game?
To an extent.
Yeah.
To an extent. It's certainly, you are right in terms of like taking elements or ideas of Doom.
That sci-fi horror.
Yeah. But it's very much that focus of sort of, I'd say it's more like Doom 3 horror, as opposed to like Doom 2016 sort of element. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It is a Souls-like game. It's very much in the wheelhouse of Dark Souls, Sekiro, Bloodborne. I do have to say, having played a little bit of it, I do have my gripes about it. It definitely is I don't want to be too harsh on it, but it definitely feels more like it was under a budget as opposed to a From Software title. It doesn't quite feel polished. The mechanics are definitely there in terms of it trying to be a Souls-like game. But there's elements within the system, such as like the inventory management, that I really don't like. And I think the reason I don't like it is because it's quite fidgety. It requires a lot of like interrupting your gameplay to have to switch to certain items or to navigate a menu to being able to use things. Whereas something like with the Dark Souls game, once you equip a healing item, you can just press a button on the D-pad and it uses it. Whereas with this, you've certainly got to go through the process of making sure it's equipped to a slot first, and then going through the menu to select it. It takes a few more steps. But I am enjoying it. Like I won't waste too much time to say like there are issues, but I am enjoying it. So
I think it's worth pointing out, based on the issues you just described, that it is kind of half the price of a Dark Souls game would typically be in launch.
The other thing I would say as well is this is actually the first experience I've ever seen where you can play split screen co-op as well as a Souls-like game too. So you can sit down and you can play co-op with your friends. You can play it online. You can play it local as well. So if anybody out there is thinking about trying to, experience the world of a Dark Souls game, which traditionally they do have multiplayer mechanics, but only in certain areas, this is a full, 2-player at least multiplayer game that you can actually sit down and you can play through the whole thing together. So it does have its benefits as well. But it's a good game. I wouldn't sleep on it. But the price is probably pitched maybe just a bit too high at the moment. Granted, it did only come out July last year, so it's still not even a year old at this point.
And if that price is putting you off, of course, just throw in May.
Exactly, yeah.
Enjoy it then when everyone else will jump on it.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Yeah, that is Tom is the litmus test that we use for all of our games coming. Speaking of games coming to Stadia, taking a step aside away from all the newly announced games, we got a bit of an update on a much reported game you may have heard about, a little title called Terraria, which was coming and wasn't coming to Stadia due to Google lockdown and stuff. Mentioned it, but some eagle-eyed people out there, as part of Terraria's kind of weekly or monthly report detail they put out over on the website, give us an update on a Google account and Stadia update. So I'll read straight from the website. As you may have noticed, we've had a ton of issues to kick off the year, stemming from the locking down of Redigit's entire Google account in early January. The YouTube and stuff account they're referring to in the original articles. After a month of pushing, parentheses, and with the immense support of our fans, Google finally reached out and was able to provide a lot of transparency around the situation and to restore access to all of our accounts. Due to the hard work the Stadia team has put in, as well as our partners at 505 Games, we've decided that we will allow the upcoming launch Terraria on Google Stadia to proceed. Stadia Terraria build is based on the DR Studios 1. Blah 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 latest version and currently at Google for certification. Thanks again, Terrarians. We are, as always, blown away by your support. So, gentlemen, it's coming. After all of the reports and rumours and journalists jumping on the bandwagon that Stadia's dead and this guy's pulling his game from the platform, I think we probably covered in our SideQuest mission, Richie, that whether this is legal or personal or fan support, as they say in their post, it's coming, for better or for worse. We're getting Terraria.
It goes back to my theory that maybe they were just doing this, pulling the game to put pressure on Google to act, where it seemed like they were struggling to get anywhere with like the support, and by pulling the game, suddenly now the Stadia team are then putting pressure on other parts of Google to kind of get the shit together, basically.
But it's kind of left a bit of a sour taste in my mouth. I know we covered it on the SideQuest. If you want to go check that out, youtube.com/Sounds of Stadia, the whole SideQuest episode stuff where we basically break down, was it right to bring your personal life into the impact of your games? Is it fair on the fans? Is it fair on blaming Stadia? And I would like to point out Andrew Spinks, of course, the guy who's CEO, owner, developer of the game, because it's a very small team, which we covered. He's not bothered to share any articles about this being fixed or the blog post, so he was happy to share all the articles about the negativity side, but now it's fixed.
He just wanted Lord of the Rings back. He just wanted Lord of the Rings back.
I don't blame him for wanting Lord of the Rings back, but I just think it's similar to we've alluded to the kind of the negative journalism that Stadia gets, where it's creating this vicious cycle that the good stuff doesn't get spoke about. Like, this has been resolved. They've mentioned in their blog post that like the incredible work the Stadia team's put in and support from our fans, and I guess us as consumers, we are the fans who reached out and tweeted saying like we want it on Stadia, like 100% bring it over. yeah, let us know, I guess, in the comments below whether you'll be buying Terraria now. I personally have no interest in buying it. It's half out of spite, but then also it's probably going to be a pro game just based on the size of it, maybe.
I have no more emotion left to give about this anymore. Like I posted on Twitter the other day, it's an emotional roller coaster. This whole debacle was. I'm glad it's been resolved. I will say, I had a bit of back and forth with a user on Twitter about this. For better or for worse, we're never going to know the full ins and outs of what happened. We don't deserve to know, quite frankly. And the reason I say that is because it doesn't directly impact us. We are not either the person who was affected nor Google. And when it comes down to, Google making a decision as to why his account should have been, was suspended, we all have to accept, I'm getting choked up by this, we all have to accept that when we create accounts, we are at the beck and call of of Google.
Security.
It's end user agreements. You agree to the end user agreement.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, we have to accept that in a tech world that we agree to these things. There is no real regulation over it, so it is what it is. We need to move on. The game is coming.
Exactly.
That's it.
I know you mentioned, Tom, that we'll never find out what happened and stuff, but I can clearly tell you, Frodo got the ring to Mordor, and Sauron was destroyed. So, sorry for a 20-odd-year-old movie and a 50-year-old novel, Richie. Spoilers. I think enough time has passed, but
spoilers for literally books I've got on my windowsill.
Exactly. Yeah.
What about the Ingalls?
Yeah. Oh, that's a whole side quest. Literally unto itself.
No, we're not doing that second. If the Lord of the Rings game comes to Stadia, then we'll do it.
So next story of the week, kind of off the back of games coming and not coming to Stadia, we had a couple of interesting articles drop across multiple news outlets this week, most of them stemming from a Wired article. As you would have expected, as all the employees slowly filter out of the Stadia Games Entertainment team and make their way off to new jobs, hopefully, and they find themselves nice and settled, naturally some of them are going to be reached out to by reporters for an inside scoop, essentially, in what Stadia looks like behind the scenes. And that's kind of trickling out. It started last week with some of the discussions that happened with Mr. Phil Harrison behind the scenes before the announcement, and we're now starting to hear some behind the scenes things regarding money that was exchanged and the works that were in development, interestingly enough. So the kind of biggest one, we'll start off at the top, yes, with there was a discussion with Hideo Kojima, obviously famed of Metal Gear Solid and Konami before all that happened. That's a whole new story unto itself. But essentially, there was an episodic horror game that he was running by the Stadia team. And Kojima referenced something last July, I think it was, about the game's not going ahead, and that's just the games industry, and he's a bit, quote, pissed off about it. Obviously, Japanese translation. But, gentlemen, we could have potentially seen a Hideo Kojima horror game on Stadia, and evidently the people who's in power, whether that was Phil Harrison or the execs or the money required to make this, didn't deem it worthy enough, which seems crazy to think about.
All over again.
Yeah. And again, the websites have ran with this and said Stadia cancelled the horror Kojima game. It's like, no, they didn't cancel it. It was never being made for Stadia. He's just clearly going around marketing it to all the publishers who potentially want it. He
pitched it, from what I can tell, he pitched it to them and decided not to go ahead. Yeah. There could be a million different reasons why. Maybe they didn't like the concept of the game. Maybe there was just too much money involved.
I mean, yeah, if he pitched a game that's exactly the same as Death Stranding, and we all know, let's face it, Death Stranding didn't, although it was polarizing, it didn't hit the numbers that I think Sony would have wanted out of an exclusive game with such a amazing person at the helm. So him pitching another episodic thing, we look at the Dark Pictures anthology, and that doesn't really do great numbers. If you are Stadia looking at where best to spend your money, which we know they're clearly thinking about off the back of last month's news. Yeah. Is there any surprise? It would have been a great get, don't get me wrong, I would have played the shit out of whatever it was, but Stadia didn't cancel it. It was never on Stadia. It was never coming to Stadia. So, again, but, guys,
And
What a game it could
Kojima
have
cancelled.
been.
So this is the thing: is like Kojima himself cancelled the project by the sounds of it because he couldn't get anyone to back it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that
There you
man's
go.
got a million and one ideas.
And bear in mind how well he gets on with Sony. I'm guessing Sony probably had a look at this as well.
Mm-hmm. So
I'd imagine Sony almost probably looked at this first.
The PlayStation cancelled it.
Yeah. Yes, PlayStation cancelled it. Xbox probably did. I'd imagine he's probably had a handful of rejections by the time he brought it before Google.
Yeah. And yeah, he probably went to different people first.
Yeah.
It begs belief to a certain extent as to the sort of argument here is that obviously another part of these articles that came out this last week is about how much money Google were paying for certain games to actually arrive on the platform. And spoiler alert for those who haven't read it yet, it's a lot of money for certain games. But it begs belief, really, the question as to whether if somebody like a Hideo Kojima came to your platform and pitched a game, whether other platforms have, the idea may, as you said, may have just fallen flat on its face, and it may have just not seemed like a good starter, really. But it does beg the question, really: do you get somebody like Kojima on side just for the exclusivity to basically say, we have a Kojima Productions game coming to Stadia that you will not be able to get anywhere else? Like, does it warrant that sort of gamble, really, as to whether it could be a huge success?
It depends on the finances behind it. I think it's one of them things, like being Hideo Kojima pretty much gets you in the room with any investors you want, but you still got to pitch a good game.
Yeah, and I think again it's down to the risk, because we know he's an independent studio now, and we also know Death Stranding ran on the Decima engine, which is a proprietary Sony one that's made by the Guerrilla team who do Horizon Zero Dawn. So if he's branching out to Stadia, he isn't going to be able to use the engine that he used for Death Stranding, I would imagine. There's got to be some legality behind that. So would the game look anywhere near as good? Would the expectations run amok like they do with certain titles? And yeah, I suppose if you're looking at finances, we know Stadia just shuttered their own studios, so clearly maybe it's 100 to 200 million that was required to finance this project, with it being rumoured to be episodic, probably just wasn't cutting the mustard. And I'm sure Kojima could do amazing things with cloud technology, state share. He'd probably do some wacky, crazy things where you click a link in the YouTube chat and that drops 20 enemies on screen for the person in the game, or some crazy thing like that with oil and goop and crazy spider creatures, like whatever he usually comes up with. But yeah, like you said, Richie, it was probably just too much of a gamble. So...
Yeah, it's hard to know. Like, I can understand how Kojima himself might be a bit annoyed by not getting this project off the ground, especially he seems to, since he moved on from Konami, seems to be focused on passion projects. But that, as he said himself, that's part of the game industry.
For better or for worse,
that
is
yeah.
what happens. So in the article as well, it's covered over on like VGC, Video Games Chronicle, Eurogamer picked it up, and then a wide article. And it, again, swings and roundabouts with these news sites now. They tend not to do their own research. They just copy and paste from each other. Within the same article, we learned that Journey to the Savage Planet, the Typhoon studio with Alex Hutchinson, was just obviously put out last month's pro game, the Employee of the Month edition. Apparently we're working on a sequel, which was also cancelled with the closure of the studio last month. That's never going... Well, I mean, it's arguably not going to see the light of day. The IP, I guess, belongs to Stadia now, so...
I think it does, yeah.
Which is... Because, again, we should probably kind of fold in the same story that this game got loads of bad press this month because it was having some bug issues, which, ironically enough, the game's full of bugs on an alien planet. But yeah, the title itself, people couldn't get past the load menu to get into the game. And for whatever reason, obviously the studio didn't exist, so who was there to patch and fix the game on Stadia? Ironically enough, Grace in the Reddit threads got in there and said that we're working on a fix. So there clearly is developers still at Stadia, however that looks or works out, who have patched and fixed it. But again, the kind of the theme of this week's podcast, I guess, is news outlets that report on the bad stories, but then when it was fixed, a lot of them didn't even go in and update their articles to say that the actual issue's been resolved. Which again it leaves a bad taste in my mouth from kind of the trust that comes with those particular site.
Yeah.
But read into that what you will. We're happy to talk shit for clickbait headlines, but when the issue's resolved like less than 24, 48 hours later, we still leave, or in fact, in some cases, they repost the same article with the same bad headline.
Yeah.
But either way, that's just me reading the news. Jenny the Savage Planet 2, I've enjoyed what I've played of the original. It would have been nice to see them iterate on it and bring a sequel possibly exclusively to Stadia. Evidently that's not going to happen now, but
no.
C'est la vie.
C'est la vie indeed.
C'est la vie.
Life goes on.
Life does go on. And another story from within the same kind of article. Again, this is probably just ex-employees like talking about the projects that they were all working part on. There's rumours that the Harmonix agreement that the Stadia have got, the second party developers agreement with Harmonix, apparently is the game's practically finished, but it's not coming out. And since then, the CEO of Harmonix has came out and said that's false. The game is coming. If it doesn't come to Stadia, we're happy we can take it elsewhere. So essentially, I don't see how that one's really impacted because that's a prearranged agreement and the company's not owned by Stadia.
If it was going to be published by Stadia Games and Entertainment and Stadia Games and Entertainment no longer exist, there might just be up in the air about are Google still going to publish this?
Yeah. So
that's the thing with Stadia Games and Entertainment, they weren't just developers, they were publishers as well.
So in and amongst that though, this Harmonix game, we don't know what it is. We presume it's something to do with music because that's how Harmonix tend to focus their games on.
It's in the name.
It's in the name, exactly.
It's sorry, I just thought EA Sports in my head then as well, but it's Harmonix. It's in the name.
So in regards to that, if it's nearly complete, I'm guessing we're probably going to see it as one of the Stadia exclusives going into spring, summertime, if it's almost wrapped up on. And hopefully we'll have a Kinect of some form by then. Because
keep asking for it. Well, we keep asking.
Nintendo have had two effectively because they've had their own Direct and a Pokemon one,
big Pokemon,
which is awesome.
PlayStation,
and then Sony,
So
it's
and obviously,
I mean, we're very quickly approaching sort of GDC time as well.
Yeah, we really
think about it.
And kind of just to fold in another story of the week, we've got the announcement that GDC. We said last week GDC is digital. Sorry, E3's live show has been cancelled this year. The actual physical event going to in America has been cancelled. Obviously, they'll still do something digital, but in terms of like the go-to event, I think the world's not quite ready for mass gatherings of thousands and thousands of gamers in a crammed warehouse event arena. And then on the top of that, we've also got Jeff Keighley and his Summer Games Fest is going about for 2021 again, which we saw last summer, in my opinion, lasted way too long. It was dragged out over like 3 months, it felt like, with random days. I would rather it be a condensed thing, but it's
week.
Happening again.
That was the beauty of E3, is it was all condensed into like 1 week.
Yeah, you get all your news and you go and talk about it after the fact. Not, he's a random video drop on a Tuesday, he's a random one midday on a Thursday. We've got a little thing set up with an interview with a developer on a Saturday, and there's just no structure to it. So a couple of news, and again, like you said, Tom, we are getting around to that time of the year where the wheels start heating up and we're cooking gas. We should start hearing about things. But yeah, Stadia not had the best start of the year in terms of press, so they must have something. I mean, we're going into March now, guys. Like, what was the last thing we had? We had good stuff in November. But we haven't had a Kinect since last summer then, right?
It has been a while. Maybe that should be the new FIFA count. Days since Kinect.
Days since possibly. We'll see. We'll certainly see on that one. Other stories, aside from all the games, we've had some updates from Paratrope, who you may have heard of. They're an independent studio over on Kickstarter. There's been a lot of fervour in the Twitter world around this game. It was Kickstarter and the Stadia community, went to town on this game. They blew past their Kickstarter total, and it's been officially confirmed. They reached out, they kind of got in touch with the Stadia team, start part of the Stadia Makers program, and they confirmed this week over on Twitter that the game will be coming to Stadia. So just like that, the community got behind them, they supported them, they funded them, and this RPG title, SkyClimbers, is going to drop on Stadia probably 2022, I'd imagine. They've done a fair bit of work on the game already, but finalise it.
Yeah.
What's your guys' take on this? Because we haven't really reported on it as it's been in Kickstarter, because I don't think it wasn't Stadia news until it was made official, in my opinion.
I think the biggest news, I think for me, taking aside from the game, is just goes to show you that Google are paying attention to what the community is asking for, and if people like the movement behind getting this to Stadia led Google to reach out to them. So that just goes to show you the community does have power to try and get the games they want brought to the platform.
True. Obviously, they've been very clear, very transparent. The developer's been out and done interviews with our friend Brian over the Nerf Report. He's been on Stadia Source, and they've been very, very active within Twitter. Hashtag Team Stadia all over the place, and it is that kind of engagement which I think is really building a bit of hype behind the game. Plus, the game looks gorgeous. It's obviously RPG. It reminds me actually of Valheim, which is doing really, really popular stuff over on Steam right now. It's smashing milestone sales figures and hours played and all that stuff, and it gives me vibes like that mixed a little bit with, funnily enough, Infinity War with the trailer they put out, where it looks like Wakanda with loads of people fighting on a green battlefield in like some kind of weird futuristic.
My thoughts about this game is, first of all, just to say I am a backer of this game as well. I actually decided to back this game with one of the getting some digital game keys and alpha keys as well. So I picked up a bundle where I should hopefully get alpha access to this. So in the future, when we do get alpha access, which I believe will be on PC, do expect some footage for that for the channel as well, because obviously with the title coming to Stadia, I will report on it. But my way of thinking about this is it's akin to a game like Valheim, like you say, like a survival-based game mixed with, there are Pokemon elements to it, like the open world Pokemon game that was recently announced. The idea is that there's over 400 different types of what are called sentients out in the world, which are the different types of creatures that can all be tamed and used as part of your character or your class. You joined one of several different factions. I believe there's 3 of them, with a 4th one potentially coming, depending on whether they hit their target for it, which I believe is $250,000. Currently seated, they're at 241,000 with 11 days to go. So it looks like we might get a 4th faction coming soon. The factions are all based on sort of like ancient civilizations. So things like the ancient China, ancient Japan. There's like an ancient, like a very old ancient African based one, and one that's very sort of like Germanic or very sort of European. These sentients also have evolutions as well, so they sort of, they grow up as well, and they change through different forms too. But I really like the idea of this sort of class-based, warrior, mage, ranger sort of element mixed with the survival of being able to base build as well. And looking at some of the footage that you can see online, you can see the base building can be quite sort of like build your own house kind of thing, with, building floors, then walls, then stairs and stuff like that. Or you can build pre-existing structures as well. So you can just pick, I want to build a house, and it's got like a prefabricated house that, as long as you get the resources for it, you can just whack down generic house here. And the idea is you can either play in a world with, a world with your friends, just to build cities. But I also understand, being quite aspirational, this game seems to be, that it's also got quite a bit of almost like an RTS element to it, in the fact that you will be in a world, but there will be enemy factions, not played by other players, but played by AI, that will also be out there taming creatures, building their own bases, and they will be looking to ultimately try to dominate you and destroy your bases and your faction as well. So it's quite aspirational, but it's very pre-alpha at the moment as well. So I'd say watch this space. It looks good. There's a lot of work in development. We know that that our friend Scarlett from Stadia Source as well also helped create the Phoenix Sentius that is now sort of synonymous with the Team Stadia, as part of SkyClimbers, as well as part of our sort of community engagement there, which will be called the Air Axe too. But I'm intrigued. I think the best way I could describe this game is, and you're going to enjoy this, it's going to be a mix of sort of like Valheim meets Breath of the Wild meets Minecraft meets Pokemon meets RTS. So it's quite a bit of a mashup. Quite a bit of a mashup.
A little something for everybody, it sounds like. And it's great to see what can happen when people do like back something so passionately. And you're right, the stuff with Scarlet, and there's actually a video out there where they actually create the creature, I should say, within like their development tools. Go check that out over on the YouTube account. They live streamed it, I believe, which is just great to see like how quick they can get in and bring something to life from just a drawing design to being in as part of the game. So it shows you how complex and detailed that world is going to be. But what to look out for well in the future. I'm sure with the transparency that the devs have had so far, we're going to see loads of updates. As with most good Kickstarters, they generally keep the fans in the loop, or they keep their backers in the loop quite a lot. So Tom, you can be our touch point how that game is developing over time. Speaking of games developing over time, we got the news this week that Warner Brothers' Hogwarts Legacy has been delayed. Can't really say I'm massively surprised by this. They put out a statement on Twitter saying, "We would like to thank fans from around the world on the tremendous reaction to the announcement of Hogwarts Legacy from our Portkey Games label, creating the best possible experience for all of the Wizarding World and gaming fans paramount to us, so we're giving the game the time." Hogwarts Legacy will be released in 20. So
okay, it's a delay.
It's a delay. It's a delay to a big game. If you've not seen already, have you gentlemen seen that this game's been getting a bit of bad press for its links to J.K. Rowling? And I think one of the developers this week was he was in his youth. I think he used to run some bad social media channels, which obviously happened in the past. But do we behold people to their past? And J.K. Rowling's having a bit of a problem right now with her thoughts and opinions, putting them out there on Twitter. And it kind of goes back to the question for me, while we're on the topic of the game. Do you separate the creator from their art after a period of time? Like, would you not buy this game because if J.K. Rowling doesn't like X, Y, Z, or says something that's...
I think that's just a decision everyone has to make for themselves. I'm assuming that you don't, for this scenario, you don't agree with J.K. Rowling, first of all.
No.
You kind of have to decide for yourself, like, how much do you want to support like all the developers and the team that have done nothing wrong? In making this game, and
hundreds of people at Warner Brothers
versus and balancing that against knowing that when you buy this, you are also providing an income for J.K. Rowling.
Yeah,
and I think it generally just has to come down to a personal decision. Are you willing to?
It is. I'm with you there 100%. I don't think there's anything else that needs to be said on the matter. From my perspective, anyway, I think it is literally exactly as you said.
Because it's kind of just following it on social media and the internet. It reminds me similar to like Stadia, how now no matter what this game does, the news side of it has got kind of wind of all this bad press. And it seems like every other article I read about it always refers back to, but in other news, one of the people who worked there 10 years ago did this. And because J.K. Rowling said this game is now in trouble. It's like...
It's a classic press thing because J.K. Rowling's quite vocal with her views on Twitter. So there's already bad press around the game and the Harry Potter franchise. So then they're digging up other stuff.
Yeah, it's such a weird line across. It's similar with like celebrities and music artists who like, do you not listen to their music anymore because of stuff that happened in their life? Because the song arguably is still great or amazing. The movie they were in is still... Just look at the Kevin Spacey stuff. Like, we can't argue that the work he was in was undoubtedly well revered in its time, but then because of something that happened later, does that make the movie any less good? So it's such a weird dilemma to juggle. But either way, we won't be playing it until 2022. The kind of flip side to that coin, I guess, gentlemen, is this is another big third-party game that we didn't have confirmed for Stadia, but it was one of the big ones lined up for this summer. So with everything being quiet on the games front, if for example Batman Arkham Knight's game is back, we have no news on FIFA coming out this year, Call of Duty, Fortnite quiet on the West Front, Stadia Games Entertainment is closed, the Harmonix deal might be at risk. we mentioned it briefly last week, Richie, but I'd like what you were saying there, we're joking about Connect, but I do feel like we need some kind of heads up. Otherwise, is it just going to be a couple of indie games drop on a blog post every Tuesday for the next 12 months?
Unpopular opinion. Do we take a year off new releases and just catch up on our back libraries, our back catalogue?
I mean, as a gamer myself who plays on multiple platforms, I can do that, but that's not going to do Stadia any favors at all.
No, it will not. You're absolutely right.
It just seems a bit quiet.
Yeah.
I know we said the weather's getting nicer and the world with Summer of Games Fest and E3 and everything and GDC kind of hotting up.
I know everyone hates this, but it's the lack of roadmap. We don't know what's coming, and Stadia don't like to tell us.
But speaking of, a couple of final news stories for the week. Cyberpunk 2077, after the major hack and black market dealings and dark interwebs and all of that stuff, CD Projekt Red have obviously been impacted massively by this, and they've came out and announced this past week that the latest patch is going to be delayed. My guess is this is going to have a knock-on with the DLC. This is going to have a knock-on with the multiplayer. Let's remember, this game still isn't available on PlayStation 4, guys. Like 60 days after launch. Actually, when did it launch?
Is this the FIFA version of
It's like a reverse version of it. But
counting up now.
It's crazy, right? That the game isn't out on a console that's sold. There's 120 million plus PS4s out in the wild, and you can't buy this. It runs on my phone on Stadia.
I don't have any sympathy for CG Projekt Red and releasing the game in the state on PlayStation that it did, because it shouldn't have been released. It's that simple. We've always talked about delaying games to make sure it's a good quality product is a good thing. But I do start, when things like this are piling on, I do start having sympathy for them, because the hack is absolutely nothing to do with them. That is just a bunch of people being a bunch of
people.
Cyberpunks.
Yeah, they're not. So it's but that means that they're actually damaging the game. So if there's people out there who want to play this game and waiting for the patches, these hack attempts are stopping that from happening and putting people's livelihoods at risk as well. Think what you want about the directors of the company and the people who make the decisions. There's a lot of good people who get employed by that company to make these games, and they're the ones who are going to be hit the hardest.
Exactly. So I guess we'll see a knock-on effect probably over the rest of the year now with this hack. And right, so again, we've got to remember that the whole pandemic and everyone working from home is causing its own list of problems. And I think we mentioned it a couple of times last week, Richie, that we're going to really start to see the impact probably this year more so than we did last year, because a lot of games in development were probably just mopping up and polishing, whereas now games that are only halfway through development or just getting started, it's so much more difficult, I'd imagine, than it would have been. But like we said, the end is nigh on the horizon. Not the end. That sounds bad. The light at the end of the tunnel, we'll say, is coming around. So hopefully we'll get back. Speaking of things down the pipeline, Tom, you'll be thrilled to know that Kaze and the Wild Masks is now available for pre-order for £29.99 English pounds and your local equivalent. Have we pre-ordered this yet, sir?
I've not, because I, for some reason, can't find it on my phone. I can find that link online and click it, but if I actually go through the mobile app, I personally can't find it under the pre-order section. So I'm not sure if Google is trying to hide it away.
Are you trying to look in the all games section?
All games. Now that's a shout. But surely it should be under the pre-orders, right? Surely it should be under the pre-orders category.
I would have thought so.
I see everyone's checking their phones right now.
I actually wanted to remind myself.
It's not there under pre-order now.
Live breaking news.
Kaze and the Wild Mask. See, this is the kind of thing that I feel needs to be addressed, because the game's out in 26 days. It is available to pre-order. It is literally on the store to pre-order right now. But if I were to go to the pre-order section, it ain't there.
You would have thought this would all be done automatically, an algorithm being Google.
Or when they just add it to the store, they add it with a tag on there, and that automatically categorizes it. We do that with YouTube with uploading videos. We can just literally categorize it.
It actually has a pre-order tag. It's got attached to the game. You would have thought that by clicking that tag, it would have put in the pre-order section.
It's not in my pre-orders.
Tom, why don't you just click in the search bar and type Kaze and the Wild Mask? You should be able to find it.
Oh, yeah, okay, let me just do that, right.
Oh, wait.
Oh, where is it?
Oh, wait. If only there was a quick way to find a particular game you're looking for. Anyway, jokes aside, we've got 2 final games to wrap up for your news stories for the week. For those of you out there who are interested in some DreamWorks titles, we've got Ben 10 Power Trip rated for Stadia this past week. So I think we just want to preface this with we're not into these type of games. They obviously have
25 years too old for these games.
Yeah, they have an audience if you enjoy the TV shows, I guess. I don't really know much about Ben 10, guys. I know it's a thing. I know it's very popular, but yeah, Ben 10 and Ben 10 Power Trip out. I'm trying to think what the Ben 10 equivalent would be for us. We watch Pokemon.
Ben 10,
I know nothing about Ben 10, so I can't.
We're ever into I know I'm a little bit older than you boys, but Johnny Quest would have been the closest thing for me.
You're like a year older than us. It's not like you're like 8 years or something.
One singular male titular character with the ability to morph into other things, or just have certain.
That sounds cool.
I mean, you know what? Looking at the game, in all honesty, it doesn't look that far off a lot of the other smaller titles we've got.
8 out of 10. It's got an 8 out of 10 rating on Steam currently, so
that's impressive for a game aimed at a younger audience.
I mean, it looks just like a couch co-op, because it is couch co-op as well. It looks like a couch co-op, beat them up, loads of bad guys, hit them, smash. A bit like the Ninja Turtles games that came out, and the Transformers games, where you just in a mapped area. Go and beat up loads of bad guys, collect coins, traverse 3D landscapes, platforming. Yeah, if you're into Ben 10, fill your boots. And the other game that was announced was DreamWorks Dragons Dawn of New Riders, which is obviously from the animation movies, I take it. How to Train Your Dragon in 30 days? Or just How to Train Your Dragon? Am I adding the 30? Why am I adding the 30 days on?
Apparently, you've got a deadline to meet, Chris.
That's it. Yeah, they 30 days, or they just burn you to a crisp if you've not trained them properly. Again, it's more asymmetric view. It's actually the same angle point you'd get from like Lara Croft and the Guardian of Light kind of thing. You solve puzzles. You work your way through the map.
Reminds me of do you remember the Sparks side missions on Spyro the Dragon? It's like that when you go into Sparks' little world kind of thing.
It looks pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, again, that's the thing.
Is that a purchase I smell, Richie?
Yeah.
I mean, Richie just likes dragons.
I do. Dragons are awesome.
So, it announced...
Those movies were good.
I haven't seen one. I think I caught one on a flight one time. Yeah.
I am shocked by that. You need to go watch them. They are really good movies. And I mean, there's a ton of spin-off on Netflix. Like, there's an entire Netflix.
Yeah, I mean, they're that popular that they've made their way into our public conscience.
Yeah.
But once again, I will just say, this game has a 9 out of 10 rating on Steam currently. So again, there are people out there who are buying them, who are enjoying them. So, we may be like, this may not be within our wheelhouse of games to enjoy, but there's obviously a younger gaming audience. At some point, we are going to become the old gamers, the boomers.
Some point,
we already are, Tom.
But there's a new generation of gamers coming in, and if Stadia's picking up titles that appeal to a younger audience, then
that's good.
I'm all for it. I know I'll be, down the line, fingers crossed, all being well with Stadia. I'll be passing this to my child's hands and being like, here you go. Here's a ton of games you can play.
Your child's been born. He's his Stadia controller.
Yes,
day one.
I've still got that packed up. I've still got that packed up Premier Edition from the Cyberpunk deal that's ready to go to my kid for their birthday at some point.
Which birthday?
I don't know, but I'll be interested to see what generation of Chromecast is actually out when I hand that Chromecast Ultra over to them. Here's some ancient technology.
But, you need to get your hands on like an old Game Boy for them. That's where they need to start. Yeah,
that's a fair point. We should understand, of course. This will get probably on Twitter, games, like it's not proper games stuff, but it's fleshing the library out, it's appealing to more audiences. Nintendo do it amazingly. We've got to remember, we're not the only people who play games. Like, we got into games when we were kids. There's nothing to say that this isn't going to be the future. And again, we joke because Richie, you mentioned about Pokemon. That's the thing that started.
I'm hyped for them games.
Yeah, and we picked them up when we were 5-6-year-old originally. So it's just the way of gaming, and the industry is always evolving, and the audience is getting bigger and growing with it. Like, we are the essentially the top end of the spectrum when it comes to gamers and gaming. So just like I'll look at a Power Rangers game, like the SpongeBob games are doing really well. Like, yeah, it's different different horses for courses. But that does bring us a wrap on this week's stories, gentlemen. Been another busy one. Covered a lot of new game titles and some stories across the board from all different outlets. And we hope our audience out there has enjoyed the show this week, because it's been a good one. I've had a good bit of energy. I don't know whether it's the sun's up, the weather's nice out, we've got Tom back. I didn't drink too much last night. I had plenty of sleep, that's for certain. We got our little Stadia care package. Sleeps for the week. Well, it depends actually. But if you have like 1 hour sleep and I have 10, and then we go into battle, I'm guessing
just sleep at least once a week.
I'm feeling pretty weak right now, so I could do with some
one punch. But thank you everyone who's tuned in for episode 75 of the Sounds of Stadia podcast, the longest podcast this side of maps. Of course, you can support us over on patreon.com/Sounds of Stadia if you'd like to give the channel that little bit nudge. You can also click like, subscribe, share the channel down below, and check us out on our weekly live streams we bring you every Thursday, where no doubt this week we'll probably be playing Pac-Man Mega Tunnel Battle. I
imagine so.
We'll bring our massive Stadia cantinas with canteens. What's the right word? Is it a canteen?
Water bottle, Chris. Water bottle.
Yeah. Flask.
I suppose it is a flask, isn't it?
Water
really?
carrying vessel.
Yeah, water vessel. We'll go with that.
Of course. Thank you everyone who's tuned in. Richie, we're about to go away and talk some SideQuest for SideQuest number 4.
SideQuest number 4, right?
Would you like to let the audience know what the topic of the week is this week, so they can check it out early on Patreon, or they can wait until Friday on free feeds?
So we are going to be talking about whether or not Stadia Pro and YouTube Premium could be combined, and how that could affect things.
Could be. Tune in, find out. Any final thoughts from yourself this week? I thought you had a cat on your lap then. You're just stroking.
You think he's cradling his water bottle like it's like a young child?
I just glanced up and saw him turn like a Bond villain with a white thing in his lap as he's stroking it.
You've taken my outro. I was literally waiting on my outro to go, I've been waiting for you, mister.
I thought you were just that much in love with your free swag. That's like, you just got all broody over it.
You spoiled the outro now. I can't do it. I'm done.
Show's over.
Show's over. Thank you everyone for tuning in this week for the Sounds of Stadia podcast. My name's been Chris.
I've been Tom.
I've been Richie.
We've been Sounds of Stadia. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Mr. Bond.
Mr. Bond.